accent the first note.
Just the first one, and then, so just. Not every note.
Right, left, right, right. Right, left, right, right. Right, left, right, right. And then straight. Yeah, that's easy. Okay, I changed all the settings, so maybe. Okay, now, just by accenting the first note, just the first note, pair. That's going to take the pressure off the other notes. Paradiddle. You're playing three notes on one hand. Paradiddle. Now let's see if we're getting sound. You can hear that? Yeah, quite a bit echo.
Actually sounds pretty good when you put in that accent in the first.
Yeah, the first, yeah, that's a big point.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, it's like supposed to be there. So that is like a sort of an Afro-Cuban style playing, right? Where the first part is, we got that, right? We've done that for a few years, right? Okay, now the second part would be the paradiddle. 2, 3. So the two notes, da 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 da, paradiddle, 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 and paradiddle 3 and paradiddle 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and paradiddle 4 and 1, 2 and paradiddle 4 and 1, 2 and paradiddle 4 and 1 and 2 and paradiddle 4 and 1, 2 and paradiddle 4 and 1, 2. on one hand. So just do the parallel. Okay, good. This will be a real brain teaser.
With my right hand, I should do it with my right?
You should be able to do it either way. You have to do it either way. Okay? So what we're doing here is you'll be doing it, you know, with your other hand, and you'll both be hitting the drum. All right? All right? Okay, now you can start your paradiddle with your right hand, okay? Oh, start your paradiddle with your left hand, sorry. Yeah, do that one. Yeah. Okay, so just have you noticed that you're playing the conga drum is getting a full paradiddle because you're each playing one of the hands. So just leave one hand on the conga drum and the other hand on your djembe and alternate your paradiddles back and forth. Oh, Gar's cheating. You switched it. Listen, no. So now I'm starting with my right hand on the djembe. Are you starting with your right hand on the djembe? Yeah, that's what it was. Okay, because you're both playing the same part now on the conga drum. So start with your right hand on the djembe. No, okay. You're going to do those two notes on the djembe for right now. Oh, you're starting with your right hand, sorry. Yeah, that's it. So then you play opposite what he's doing, okay? You know, before I told you, it was fine, it was working. Okay, so when he's hitting the djembe with his right hand, you could hit the djembe with your left hand. That's that downbeat. Okay? keep your hands on the two separate drums. Your hands aren't going to switch drums.
So I don't start.
No, you keep one hand there and the other hand on that drum. And then you do the same thing. Yeah, it's a conga drum. Yeah. See, because you hit the paradiddle, though, both of you were playing the paradiddle. So, okay. So let's go a little faster. Now what this is doing to your brain is what's interesting. It's waking up circuitry and creating new brain circuitry. Makes you smarter when you do this. Get your hand sequence. Yeah. Good. So normally your brain doesn't have to fire and be this exacting with hand sequence at this tempo. So what we're doing is we're gradually increasing the brain's capability to process data that your hands are involved with. And that's why this is a powerful therapeutic tool. Because the brain is being stimulated. It's like lifting weights. You got to do the work. But there's no fear. You work through it just by slowly speeding up the tempo. The perceived fear that you might be doing it wrong is completely irrelevant. So this is a great way to stimulate the brain activity in a no-risk situation. That's why there's theories about why drumming creates higher IQ. Because you're not using the intellect, but you're stimulating the brain. You're using the body to stimulate the brain. And that's a different phenomenon than reading and learning calculus. Because you're using the physical reality of your body to stimulate the way the brain functions. So you have developed a different language for problem solving without engaging the intellect. So it's intuitive, it's physical. Yeah, okay. So it puts you in a trance right away. Because the intellect says, I don't get this, I can't control this situation. And that's the interesting phenomenon when it comes to drumming as a therapy, because the intellect gets put into neutral, like right away. When you do something as simple as a rudiment, a paradiddle, as an exercise. But it's not just an exercise, it's a meditation. And that's where I think my teacher really, my first drum teacher, Aileen Trafford, really gave me something invaluable. The way she taught it. Because now, the teachers say, it's just speed up. But no, you have to slow down, too. Once you speed up, then you slow down. So, there's different thresholds. Yeah, there's different thresholds. You gotta breathe. And then accent first note makes a difference. So when you slow down, this is really where the interesting imprinting actually takes place. Because here, there's no anxiety. You slow down, you sussed it out, and as you slow down, the body imprints the brain with the sequence of hands. And the brain normally doesn't get imprinted like that. In athletics, yes, and in music, but not in very many other things. Well, creativity, sculpture, weaving, cooking. So when you're here, both sides of the brain are active, and they're cooperating with each other. And they have to shift back and forth control of this hand sequence. And so when you're trying to learn something like this, you do it for a few minutes, and then you stop. And you let it assimilate from the body into the brain, and vice versa. And then when you do it again, you'll be able to do it. This was fun showing this to Dan Inosanto, the martial arts master, because we would do an exercise, they couldn't get it. And then I'd stop him and do something else, and then he'd come back and he could do it. So he then applied that principle to where he taught his martial artists. And it worked. Try to speed up a little bit and then slow it back down. Okay, so now what's happening here is the brain starts to freeze up. It locks up. So now we can go faster than we were. Now slow back down. So now this is really easy. Whereas before you couldn't do this. Just a few minutes ago, you were having problems with this. So slow it all the way down. A little more. Now here, the brain and the body are talking to each other. Say, okay, I got this. Now we're cooperating. Because most of the time the intellect tries to control the body. And the body is usually trying to fight its way free of control of the intellect in order to be able to do something physical. But the fascinating thing about rhythm is that the rhythm puts the intellect into neutral. And the intellect doesn't realize that's what's happening. So the body gets to play. So what we're doing is as we speed up, we're encouraging the brain to stay in a trance state and let the body perform. That's why as you speed up, stay in your body. That's why the accents are so important. The accents remind you to stay in your hands. And I showed Dan, the accents. He says, I said, let your hands do what they already know how to do. He says, you are the Bruce Lee of drumming. Back on the groove, on the pattern, because that's why I don't teach this way. It's once you get lost, it's almost impossible to get back on the pattern. Right? It takes a real minute. So the way we normally drum, you don't have to learn a pattern. Right? So if you get lost, you just pick it right up again. But here, this is closer to a traditional African, where you got to learn the pattern, and if you get lost, you're screwed. You got to kind of figure out, where am I? How do I get back into the pattern? And that's through the intellect. And when you go through the intellect to drum, it's what it sounds like. You're playing from your intellect. It doesn't swing. It doesn't feel good. So most drummers in the United States who study African are stuck in their intellect. And they play intellectually. Whereas the African master drum teachers don't get it. They go, why can't you just feel this? Because they were playing from their bodies from a very early age, from the womb. They never engaged the brain. But Baba, when I worked with Baba Olatunji, I saw that he had done both. He had learned from the body, but then he decided to be a scholar to teach it, and he had to intellectualize it. And as a result of that, it all got written in stone and locked in. And it ceased to be fun for him, because he ended up being a parody of his own drumming. It was like copying, and all the students were copying him, and it wasn't swinging. So when I came along and started noodling around, you're playing from that other place, where I want to be. And suddenly he perked up and he started laughing, because suddenly he was free again, because he didn't have to obey the rules. Because that's what happens. The intellect, as soon as the intellect gets on top of the deal, it starts insisting on making the body obey the rules. So the way the Western mind works, the European mind works, is learn technique, and maybe you'll surpass it, transcend technique, and get to the point where you're actually playing from what they call interpretive brilliance. You know, and that's what the classical musician strives for, is interpretive brilliance. And so now classical music has painted itself into this corner, and now new classical music, and even traditional classical music, has parts written in for the orchestra for the featured soloist to improvise. Because they've seen that without that improvisation, the music's dead. So they're trying to bring the audience into the immediacy of the performance by having the soloist improvise. But what does the improviser do? The improviser is like, I don't know how to improvise. I can read music, but I don't know how to improvise. So they have to start, they're already adults, but they have to learn how to improvise.